Let's begin. Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to our beautiful JNForever family. It's always so wonderful to see everybody virtually, but new faces and new people have learned to log in. That's fantastic. Well done. We are back here again to make sure that you're all happy, supported, inspired, well. As most of you know, I'm Jackie Chait. I'm the Legacy Manager for JNF Victoria, and that leaving a bequest in your will is always a wonderful, meaningful thing to do for yourself for generations to come. And I'm always available for confidential chat about anything, anytime. Give me a buzz. So, unfortunately, and late yesterday evening, I was informed that Professor Jackson Pulver had taken ill and would not be able to join us today. This is something that happens. It is beyond our control, and we wish her a speedy recovery, a refuah shalema, and I will be rescheduling with her in the near future. I've spoken with her secretary, and as soon as she's able to, we will resume with her. But do not despair. JNForever is part of a family, and as such, we pull together and have managed, through the efforts of our incredible National President, Ronette Freyd, and our amazing Executive Director, Ilana Maisels, to secure an incredible speaker for us today, who agreed to step in at such short notice and save the day. We are forever grateful. I will be handing over to Ronette to introduce our speaker, Michael Licenblat. He is a resilience expert and keynote speaker, and he has moved heaven and earth to be with us today. He has another meeting scheduled for 11:30, so we'll end just before that. And he has asked that the meeting can be more interactive. He is happy for people to put their hands up and ask questions during his talk. Just don't unmute yourselves. If you put your hand up, we will notice and we will let you have a question. But I thank you so very much, Michael, and I hand over to Ronette to do the introduction.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Bella, for inviting me to introduce our very special guest speaker, Michael Licenblat, to you today. And may I just also say at the outset how grateful I am to you, Michael, for your gracious generosity in agreeing to speak to us with so little notice. You clearly embody the principles that you teach. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've all had to adapt our lives, change how we live, and create a new normal lifestyle. We're bombarded by updates of COVID cases, the stringent restrictions, and the doom and gloom of businesses struggling to operate. Every day we are being immersed in negativity and fatalism. It's how we bounce back from these challenges, problems, and changes that will determine how happy, healthy, and effective we're going to be. Michael Licenblat is a resilience expert who helps people to bounce back in high-pressure environments and tough markets. Born into a family with entrepreneurial parents, Michael grew up working in numerous family businesses. While other 10-year-olds went to the football on Saturday, Michael grew up at the Queen Victoria Market, helping his dad unpack the truck, serve customers, and balance the till. And he quickly learned that success often came to those who could ride the bumps, get up, and keep going. Michael went on to become one of the pioneers in building a successful natural therapies business, overcoming market rejection, refusals, and knockbacks. Since then, Michael has helped hundreds of companies, including Coles, Myer, Morris Blackburn Lawyers, Toyota, Smartline, St. George, and MLC, learn how to bounce back so that they could out-achieve their competition. Michael is the author of the book Pressure Proof, and today Michael will talk about how to stay resilient in times of change, drawing on his unique blended background in psychology, shiatsu, and over 25 years of martial arts experience. So don't upset him. I'm very happy to welcome Michael to address us this morning. Thank you.
Wonderful, Ronette. Thank you very much. Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you very much. The reason I'm coughing is that fully well, but I had a very early start this morning. It was probably about a 3 a.m. start. I do a number of these virtual seminars, but today was an exceptionally different one because it was for a company in America and they wanted it to be live. And their local time was at 1 p.m., which meant it was 3 a.m. Melbourne time. But I thought for this particular case, I'd make an exception for them because it was for NASA. I thought, you've got to say yes for NASA. When NASA calls, you've got to say yes. And it was a really interesting presentation. For NASA, I was talking about how they thrive in high pressure environments. And the reason why that was so important for them is because they deal with continuous change. It was explained to me that as the government changes, as people in power changes, their budget changes, their timeline changes. And it happens literally from week to week, from month to month. And sure, they are a high performing team, but they have to deal with every pushback and do so gracefully and lean in and make sure everything gets done. So sharing with them resilience, which is around high performance, was quite fitting. So when I got the call yesterday about speaking with this group, I actually thought that the message is very similar because the nature of resilience and the importance of resilience couldn't be any more pertinent than what it is today. Honestly, we have faced in the last couple of months, and I don't have to tell you, you've heard enough of this, so much change, difference, restrictions, challenges, how kids are studying, how people are living, how businesses are or aren't trading, are or aren't trading. And as a result of that, we've had to totally adapt every way in which we work. Now, for some people, adapting to these changes and pressures has been manageable. They find with a bit of pressure, they do well. But for a lot of people, the amount of change, the amount of challenge has been quite significant, which has left them feeling frustrated, flat, annoyed, isolated. And I want to share a couple of principles today of how we can use resilience to feel more empowered, to feel more positive, and not so much, I do a lot with businesses and how people sell more in tough markets, how they bounce back and how they lead in changing markets. But I want to talk for you as an individual, how you manage you, the way you can use principles of resilience and what resilience actually means today. And I think it will be different to what you see in the past, and some strategies of how you can use it in many different facets of your life. So we're going to look at some ideas around that. But the way that I'd love to run this a little differently than me just talking at you for the next 40 minutes or so is I'd love to get your interaction. So if you've got a question, pop it into the chat box. I may not be able to stop and answer it right away, but I will look at that and answer that as we go through. If you've got a comment about something, pop it in the chat box. That way I can see what you're thinking and feeling as we go through. I want to start by how are we all feeling at the moment? Where are we up to? Based on what's happening in the environment, what's happening in the world, how are we feeling? So I want to just do with looking at where you are right now. A thumbs up is, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. A halfway is kind of, I'm kind of okay. A thumbs down is really not happy at the moment, not happy. So where are we sitting? Are we a thumbs up? Are we a half? We've got half, one up, one down. Let's just have a look. We've got some thumbs down, some double thumbs up. Some haven't quite responded to the question just yet. That's okay. Some are just thinking. So that, yeah, half. Okay. And that's what I would expect to see. I would expect to see that some of you guys are doing great. Some of you aren't. And some of you, we're hanging in there, but really would rather be doing life a little differently. So here's what I wanted to say. I embarked upon resilience as a study well back into my early childhood. I actually was born into a family of very entrepreneurial parents. My mother was in the supermarket business and my father was in ladies' clothing. Not literally in ladies' clothing, but he manufactured. I had to clarify that. Pardon me, as I said, it's been a very early start to my day. And I grew up in the businesses with Dad and Mum because they worked 5, 6, 7 days at times. Again, sorry, this will fix up eventually. I'm making another drink. And I think that's going to be better. Nice. Apologies for that. All the coughing and spluttering. I am healthy. It's not that it matters because we're virtual, but I am healthy. And I grew up in the family businesses. And the way to spend time with with Mum and Dad is basically going to work with them. So on Saturdays, I would go to work with Mum and would go to the supermarket, would stack shelves, put trolleys away, and that's how I got to spend time with her. And on Sunday, I'd go to the Queen Victoria Market with Dad, and would unpack the truck, set up the stock, handle money. I was about 9, my sister was about 6, and we got to see Mum and Dad as real people. Got to see them as who they are, not just as these parent figures, but as actual people. It was really cool. I did things that other 9-year-olds just weren't doing. But it was when they went through their divorce that I saw a whole different side to them. I saw the side of sadness, of isolation, of frustration and depression as well. And no matter how tough it got for them, no matter how many setbacks they went through, how much little money they had, or how many challenges they faced, they always managed to bring home some love and a smile for my sister and myself. And it really reaffirmed something for us at an early age. We sort of saw this, we were able to see this, their role modeling. And I think it was best defined by that old saying that in life, things like pain and suffering are probably inevitable, but misery is an option. And that was something that we took to. We really it really had a big impression on us. And I was fascinated by how we thrive under pressure, how people handle pressure and have the whole world thrown at them and still can rise up and do life and still achieve more. So I was curious. I went through university, studied my psychology degree through science, and then became a practitioner in shiatsu, which no, is not a dog. Shiatsu is like acupuncture, but without needles. And I had my own practice for about 7 years, worked with about 4,000 people at that time, and saw firsthand how pressure directly affected people's well-being, their attitude, how they approach life. It wasn't just how pressure would affect their body, but it affected everything. And there were patterns to pressure that we found. And what I want to highlight is that people were able to be more resilient, to advance, when they got to understand their patterns of pressure. And I'll explain this to you. Just where you are right now, could I ask you please to fold your arms? Just cross your arms like such. That's it. Now what I'd like you to do is to fold your arms the other way. Feels strange, doesn't it? Because we like to do things in certain ways. We like to fold our arms with our arms this way. If I got you to walk upstairs, you'd walk upstairs in a certain way. But to start with the opposite foot, it would feel odd. If you're next to someone now, and I can see a few of you are, could you shake the hand of the person next to you? If you've got someone next to you there. Good, good. Now could you shake the hand of the person next to you using your other hand, your left hand? It feels wrong, doesn't it? Because we're trained to do things in certain ways. And in the same way, when you are under pressure, your body will default to certain habits of behavior, certain patterns, and they define your resilience. They define how quickly you bounce back. They define how well you can stay optimistic and positive. They'll define also how healthy you are and how much tension you've got in your body. And there are about 6 or so different levels of resilience that you can experience. And I want to show with you what that actually looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share with you a couple of slides that I've got here prepared. Now I'm going to pop that up. You'll see that shortly in front of you. You should be able to see that. There we go. Beautiful. Can you see that in front of you? That wonderful, I think there's about 6 different levels there. That's good. And I want to highlight the different styles or the different levels of resilience, making sure you understand that this is not your personality. This is a habit and a pattern of behavior that you can find yourself in from time to time. Good. So you'll be 3 different levels. At some level, you're either going to suffer through pressure, you're going to cope, or you're going to thrive. And again, the more that you can adapt yourself, the changes you can make will determine if you suffer, cope, or thrive. And I want to highlight what that will look like for you. At the lower levels, when we're under pressure, the resilience is fractured, meaning that we break, we don't handle pressure well. When we have this particular pattern of behavior known as destructive, and you'll know people who go into this pattern when things go wrong, when I've got too much to deal with, I'm just too busy, I get angry. I get negative. Everything is hard and difficult and a problem. Oh, the email's not working. I can't go out and I've got to wear this mask and it hurts my ears. Oh, well, how was your weekend? Oh, not long enough. Everything is hard and difficult and a problem. And when we fall into that particular habit and pattern of behavior, again, pardon me, I do apologize, our energy becomes draining. Our strain becomes high and we drag people down with us. We're kind of like the bad strawberry in a good bunch. It affects the energy of everyone around us. When we're in a team sense, what we do is we turn up and we resist change. I don't want to try new things. I just want to complain and moan about what's going wrong. And it's kind of like glass. When you drop glass, it breaks, it shatters. So under pressure, I'm not recovering. In fact, I am resisting. Now, this doesn't have to be a person, but this can be a habit and a pattern the person gets into under pressure. And it may be because as a kid, they got into habits when they grew up and when they got through their adulthood, they got into habits of being pessimistic and negative. And therefore, when they're under pressure, they become fragile. Sometimes, though, we can be in the red zone where we are fragile. And when we're fragile, we're feeling a little more under pressure. I feel more disengaged. I feel overloaded, everything, and overwhelmed. Everything is hard. And I just feel like I don't have energy for it anymore. I've dealt with so many different setbacks. Like during COVID, first you tell me I've got to distance myself, social distance myself. Then I can't leave the house. Now I've got to wear a mask and now I can only go out for certain things. These are some of the challenges we find. And it gets to a point where, something, I'm just over it. I've had enough. And I feel disengaged. I'm disinterested anymore. And what happens when we go into this mode, we lose the momentum, we lose the energy, we lose the, the drive for wanting to bounce back. And a person who feels disengaged, their energy is sort of flat. They're not destructive and negative and angry. They're just disinterested now. And if you've ever gone into a fast food place and you've been served by a 16-year-old whose parents have told them to get a job, that's what disengaged feels like on the other side, being served by someone who doesn't want to be there, who's not doing this. I just want to go home, forget about the world, have a glass of red or four, and just kind of let the world go past me. And like that, it's kind of like paper under pressure. It's very fragile, it tears easy, it crumples. It's not quite glass, doesn't quite shatter, but you'll find that you're feeling overloaded, overwhelmed. Everything is an effort, and I just don't have interest anymore. And therefore, my recovery, I'm not recovering, I'm just getting through. Now, again, this doesn't have to be who you are, but you may find people who, when they're put under pressure, default down to that. And you'll see that particularly around conversations. If you're calling up friends, family, and if the conversation immediately goes to COVID is bad and look what's happening and everything is negative and I hate what's going on, if it immediately goes to that, it means they've been caught up in the fractured and fragile approach to life. They've got caught up in that. Now, sometimes your approach can actually be in the blue zone. Now, if you're in the blue zone, you're coping, because in the red zone, I'm just suffering through everything. But I really would rather be coping better. And I might find I'm stable. My resilience is quite stable, which means that I'm coasting and therefore my strain is low to medium. What simply means is as I'm coasting, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm kind of getting through life. I'm not necessarily making great plans, having exciting conversations, but I'm getting by. Someone asks you how you are, you go, yeah. What can you say? It's COVID. It's that, and that's kind of coasting. When you shrug your shoulders up and go, that's the stage. You're stable. You're getting through. And if you think of it, it's kind of like when you put wood under pressure. Wood gets hit, it gets dented. It can hold its own, and it kind of deforms a little bit. And after a while, it does break, but it holds its shape. And therefore, under pressure, you do have a little more recovery, a little more bounce to you. What it also means, if you put this in terms of a work sense or a business sense, someone who's coasting generally approaches life as a ticking the boxes kind of thing. They will do what is required to do, but not over and above that. They will do enough so that people get off their back, but they're not taking extra initiative. They're not going over and beyond. They're not thinking beyond themselves. Coasting is very much, it's just what my needs and taking care of me right now and not thinking beyond that. Then we look at another stage in the coping section of resilience. And this is where we get to the robust. And I'd say a lot of people can relate to this. The robust is what we call the, the driven stage. We have a high level of output. We're kind of in go, go, go. When I'm in that driven stage, I am head down, tail up, doing as much as I can in the shortest period of time. You'll see this in work. I'm sorry about the voice again. In work where it's go, 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 then I crash, recover, go, 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 crash, recover. And this is this robust, this toughness approach. And I can take it, whatever you throw at me, I can handle, but I do burn out in the process. And you'll see this pattern happen a lot in the corporate world where we're being pushed and we're giving every ounce of ourselves. And often the mindset comes from the old army approach, which is toughen up, get over it, and let's just get through. Don't complain, and let's get on with life. And there's a certain degree of value to that. And I think a lot of the younger generation could benefit from a bit of the robust of stop complaining and let's get through life. But the challenge is that if your approach is let's just go, let's just work hard, you run the risk of that really draining you physically, mentally, and emotionally. And we see this a lot again in professionals who give a lot of themselves. And it's kind of like metal. You can put metal under great pressure and it will take it, but it will take it at a cost. These are people who might be really married to their work, who will kind of let family go, let health go, let relationships go because of their application to what they're doing. They're very focused individuals and not necessarily flexible in what they do, but have the ability to recover and get through, but at a cost. And we'll see this a fair bit. So now you might find that, yeah, I'm fine. And then, I've had enough. And I just get angry and frustrated. That's the robust in you. That's the tolerate. And this is a very old style of resilience. If you ask anyone what resilience is, it's the ability to endure. And yes, whilst that is true, whilst endurance is part of it, there's this, I think it was Abraham Maslow, psychologist, who said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see the world in terms of nails. And I think in the same way, if the only tool you've got is just enduring, you will tend to burn yourself out. And we need to find different ways of thriving under pressure. Excellent. So what else do we find here under pressure? We've also seen that you can go into that malleable stage. That's where you are flexible, where you're giving of yourself, where you are agile. And we use this term agile quite loosely now because a lot of teams are looking at agile teams. We want to be flexible, adaptable, and therefore being able to embrace what life throws at us. And it's very important because this allows you, as life pushes, you need to move with that. And if you think of a ball, that you put a ball under pressure and it will bounce back, it will be able to handle the pressure and recover to where it is. So therefore your recovery is much higher. And this is where you can look at something and go, yeah, it's not so bad. I can see the brighter side of that. Okay, so we now have to change how we shop, how we live, how we see the kids, how kids will study. We have to change all of that. And I'm prepared to give of myself. I'm prepared to give what I would like to do and adapt so that I can thrive. I can be more effective under pressure. Again, a very useful approach, but it does mean that you are very giving, and sometimes what will happen is that you'll often overgive, and you'll find that you are always there of service to everyone else. If you need help, I'll give of myself. If you need something, I'll give. And I'm very malleable, which is great because it means you're all about solutions, but it also means that you're a lot of energy out and not always energy in about you. And you're chasing your tail, helping everyone. And as you can see, someone would say that, yes, you can relate to that as well. Absolutely. And here's what we get to, is we get to these stages of where we find resilience can sit. And we find that often resilience is defined in terms of coping, enduring, and being adaptable, which it is. But the pressure today is different than what we've had in the past. And if we just toughen up and go through, it won't be sufficient. If we are just malleable and adaptable, we give out a lot of energy. And the challenge we've got with all of that is that we stay at the same pace. We get things done, but as individuals, we're not growing, we're not getting better, we're not necessarily enjoying more, we're just coping in a more refined way. And what I want us to consider is that resilience isn't the goal. Resilience is a tool to get somewhere. So when people say, oh, I want to be more resilient, I say, why? What's the purpose behind your resilience? What's it going to help you to do? Where do you want to go? What's the goal behind it? Because if you haven't worked out what the goal is, what you'll do is you'll do one of those other ones. You'll be in the stable, robust, and malleable, doing that, adapting and coping, but you need to know why. And it was interesting in his book, Anti-Fragile, by Nassim Nicholas Taylor. He talks about this state of anti-fragility. He says anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robust. The resilient, it resists shocks and stays the same, but the anti-fragile gets better. And the reason I bring this up is that right now, what we need right now, beyond just adapting, beyond just being tough, is we need people to lead from their heart. We need us to be connected. We need to bring more joy into what we're doing. We need to demonstrate empathy. We need to demonstrate support for people. That's what we need now. And resilience needs to be the tool to do that. But how? Well, what I want to look at is a concept that I call pressure proof, which is not being bulletproof. It's not being, unbreakable, but rather it's your ability to be what's called high performance, which doesn't mean I can do more. It means I'm the best version of me. That when I'm under pressure, I'm leading from my heart. I'm connecting, I'm helping, I'm serving, I'm working at the best quality work that I can do. I'm making time for me, and I'm also making time for the work that I need to do. And in order to do that, I've got to make sure that my resilience is defined by my goal of actually wanting to be of service and to give, which means this: my strain, my output is high, my work quality is high, my giving is high, but my strain is low. And I want you to consider it to be like a diamond, where under the right pressure, coal turns into diamonds. It doesn't simply bounce back like a ball, it becomes better. It becomes the best portion, the best quality of itself, and therefore its ability to bounce back is much faster. Its speed of recovery is much faster. And this is what I want us to think about, is how do you be the best version of yourself? How do we let resilience bring the you out? The real good quality. When I was talking with NASA, I talked about letting your inner genius come out. I'm not saying that everyone is amazing and a genius. No, but you have genius quality. You have a great quality that's about you, that is just you, that you want to shine. And we want to let pressure bring that out. So for many of you here who are listening to this, you might think, well, I don't know, what's special about me? It's not so much what's special. I want the best quality of you. I want the you that turns up, that smiles. I want the you that turns up, that thinks from their heart rather than being reactive. I want the you that thinks beyond yourself, that goes, how can I serve? How can I help? The you that is proactively connected to others. And that is supported by your ability to become pressure proof, not by how you cope, but by being pressure proof. So I want to pause for a moment. I know my voice has gone through some wonderful coughs and whatnot. I think we're good now. And thank you for the tips in the Zoom chat about get some honey, get some hot water. Yeah, that would be a good idea if I had thought that beforehand, but I think we're good now. I want to pause. And I want to ask you, where do you think you are? Which aspects here, which qualities, which stages do you think best reflects you? So here's what I'd love you to do. In the chat box, could you type in which one you think, or which quality best reflects you? The fractured, fragile, stable, robust, malleable, pressure-proof. What are you doing at the moment? Are you a couple of two? Are you kind of between stable and robust? Do you move between? Do you go robust, 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 fragile, and then recover? Do you kind of have that pattern? What's your pattern? If you wouldn't mind typing that in, I would be interested to see what we've got there. So I've got one here. It's malleable. Yep. And Karen, I know you need to be malleable. You've got to be agile and adaptable. And I think that the trick now for those that are in the malleable stage is, how do I be malleable and be best version of me? How do I not sacrifice me? How do I not put me at the back of the list and do it at the same time? So what we've got here, question is, what are the steps to pressure proof? Karen, I'm glad you asked. We will get to that. Robust, malleable, stable, malleable, coasting. So there's a bit of a range. I would not expect to see a lot of people say, I'm the fragile fractured, although we do have it sometimes. What you'll find is that those red zones you dip into from time to time. And what's super important is that it's not about always being happy, always being great, always being wonderful. No, it's about when you do dip into the red zone, how quickly can you bounce back into the blue zone? When you're in the blue zone, how easily and quickly can you move into the green zone? It's this fluid movement of bouncing back fast, of quick recovery to be the best quality of yourself. So the response is coming through. Stable, malleable, stable, robust, stable to malleable. So there's a bit of range, and we'd expect to see that. And sometimes it varies between what is thrown at you to what stage you've got. Yeah, Susan, I just said what you got. It depends on what's happening. I go between sort of different states over a time. And that's exactly right, as you can sometimes move between that in a day, even sometimes in a conversation, if that's the case. So let me pause for a moment and go, all right, that's what we're up to. What do you do? How do we move now to being deliberately more pressure-proof? And again, I want to make the definition that being pressure-proof doesn't mean being always happy, always great. It means that my speed of recovery to being best version of myself is fastest. And I'm able to use pressure to bring that out. Then he's mentioned here, kind of pressure-proof and robust, but concerned about becoming fragile when real life resumes. What you'll find is that you will dip into those red zones, but your ability to recover quickly is going to be your currency, not about always being happy. So let me look at how we're going to do that. I want us to take us to the qualities of resilience. In fact, let me ask you, what do you think are the qualities of resilience? If you had to help, if someone came to you for advice and said, listen, I want to be more resilient, and you had to give them one piece of advice, say what you need to do is be more of this or do more of that, what advice would you give them? Just type it in the chat box. What would you tell them to do? Ronit says, yeah, sense of humor is good. Be grateful, I love that. Yeah. What else? What advice would you give them? To accept your circumstances, look for the positives. So we're talking about mindset there. Being grateful is about perspective. Acceptance is about adaptability, looking for positives. Yeah. And often what we get, accept what is happening and see what I have neglected to see. Beautiful. So about widening perspective. And this is what I want us to understand, is that resilience, pressure proof in today's world isn't singular. It isn't linear. It isn't do this. Everything that you've mentioned in here is actually correct. But the risk that we fall into, the challenge that we've got, is that we look for a formula. We look for a technique. Give me the 3 tips on how to. Nowadays, it's actually not that. It's something a little different. It's a little bit more, I'll explain it differently. It works in different dimensions. What we find now is that sometimes what you need to do is toughen up. We actually need the ability from time to time to complain less, grit your teeth, and let's just get through this thing with less complaint. Sometimes that's the currency we need. But as I mentioned before, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see the world in terms of nails. So we need also from time to time to be able to let go, to be able to not carry things on our shoulders, to unwind your mind, to not be concerned about things that you can't control. We sometimes need to do that. It's not one or the other. It's sometimes a both, and it sometimes will vary depending on the situation. We also sometimes need to speed up. We need to go faster, get things done, to be able to multitask, to be able to get our teeth into a project, to be able to get into a conversation and not kind of slow down. But we sometimes need to slow down in order to be more resilient, to go, hang on, I need to just work out how I'm feeling right now. Let's take a few moments just for me. I need to reclaim that. If I'm going to be best version for you and best version for everyone around me, I've got to take time for me. I've got to slow down, maybe have that connected conversation with that important person. I've got to slow down, give time for me, and notice what's going right rather than what's going wrong, rather than be swept up in the speed of how fast life is going. So in order to do that, there are 4 qualities that we need to look at. Number 1 is your ability to toughen up and speed up, and that's your tenacity. That's about having grit, about being able to focus in, about knowing what you need to do, to know what kind of goals you've got, to be able to sacrifice aspects of comfort and convenience in order to get what you want. I know I've got 3 kids all going through high school at the moment, 1 year 12, 1 year 11, 1 year 9, all have to realize the value that sacrifice it has for life, that they've got to be able to sacrifice time, energy in doing things that you want to do in order to do stuff that you don't want to do in a way that you don't want to do in order to get through and survive and to be able to thrive well. And sometimes that tenacity, that grit, learning that to go, I just got to get through this is incredibly important. And for some of you here today, that's what you need to be able to do. You need to go, I can't give up. I've just got to focus in. I've got to keep going and not let difficulty overwhelm me. Well, before we started this particular call, I was talking to some of the girls, Jackie, Renee and Alana, talking about fundraising and how difficult it can be sometimes, dealing with rejections and setbacks. And sometimes we're just going to take that on the chin and dig your heels in and just keep going. That's what you might need to do. Sometimes, however, what you need to do is to toughen up, but to slow down. And there was some comments before about not taking yourself so seriously, about having perspective, looking for the positives. You need to be able to focus your mind on what's going right and not let your emotions take over. And this is really about being able to be calm in the eye of the storm. And we've seen this a lot with reacting to pressure. What happens is that your emotions travel faster than logic. In other words, when something happens, when there's a stress or a strain, emotion turns up first. And you'll quickly react to something. And logic eventually, it's reading the paper in the background going, oh yeah, I should get to that eventually. And logic eventually turns up, which is why sometimes you may say things that you later regret because emotion turned up first. You may have sent a text that you thought, oh, I really shouldn't have said that, or sent an email with capital letters. I really should have taken a few moments not to do that, because emotion travels faster than logic. And what we need to do is learn how to calm the emotion down and let logic catch up to be part of the decision-making process. So for you to be able to do that, being centered, having perspective is incredibly important around your resilience. Sometimes that high performance, that pressure proof, is the ability to step back and go, you know something, with all the challenges I'm currently dealing with, all these pressures, and for some people, income has just dropped and I can't get out and do, with all this stuff, I'm not dealing with what Anne Frank had to deal with. I'm not locked in an attic for 2 years and having to be quiet during the day. I'm actually not that, which means that, something, I can handle this. Having a point of reference that's bigger than you is huge. And that's allowing you to be centered and seeing things with greater perspective. And that, for some people, is what's going to allow you to be more pressure-proof, to bounce back much faster and be the best version of yourself. For others, though, what you're going to need to do is to let go and slow down, to really give back and have sustainable energy, to really fuel up, which simply means to look after your energy, because your energy is your currency in anything that you do. Your ability to focus in and give all of your heart into what you're doing is so important. So you've got to look after yourself, which for some, it might mean I've got to actually make time for me. It doesn't matter how much I'm giving for everyone else. I'm going to do something that's just for me, that puts a smile on my face, that makes me feel refreshed, it makes me feel energized. And it's just something which I'm giving back to me because I'm giving so much energy out. And if that's you, unless you deliberately do that, then you'll find that no one makes time for you unless you make time for yourself. So the ability to fuel up and unwind your mind, particularly now, is absolutely important to be able to be more pressure proof. And finally, it might actually be the fact you've got to let go, but speed up. In other words, be more adaptable to what's happening, to be able to flow with change as best as possible, to embrace failures and problems and challenges, and to have what we call a positive delusion around things. How do I reinterpret something to be able to go through this better, to be able to flow with all these challenges? I think it was Michelangelo who said that when he chiseled the David from the marble stone, he said that, no, the statue was already there. I just removed the extra pieces out of the way. And he believed that all his job is to take what is existing and bring it to life. In other words, he believed in his whole heart that the solution, the final piece, was already there. In the same way, we need to have what I call a positive delusion. And that is where you look at the world through rose-colored glasses, but way that actually allows you to flow into change, to be able to see solutions. So one that I love to use, a positive delusion, is that everything in life is a lesson or a gift. Now, is that true? Who knows? It actually doesn't matter. It's irrelevant whether that positive delusion is true or not. What's relevant is, does it allow you to flow with change? Does it allow you to embrace what you can't control and be best version of yourself? So I want you to think about how you can actually use a positive delusion so you are more adaptable under pressure. And this is some of the important concepts. I know it's a different approach to resilience, of being told to, smile and take deep breaths and go to a nice place in your mind. And that's all very important. But I want you to consider what you need to do to be best version of yourself. Is it about the centeredness, the tenacity, the adaptability, or the sustainability? It will vary from situation to situation, from person to person, from minute to minute. Resilience is not a formula of do this plus that. It's actually going, what do I need to bring to the mix that allows me to be best version with minimal strain and maximal recovery rate? And I think that's the important aspect of today that I really wanted to share with you. I wanted to highlight also, if you've gotten value from that and you want to be able to remind yourself, just head down to the website, which is bouncebackfast.com, and just download a copy of the white paper. It's a free white paper called Pressure Proof People. This is a bit of a summary from today that you can reread and even share it with others so it can stay fresh in your mind. And that's, again, it's at bouncebackfast.com. All right, I've talked well. I've gotten past all the clearing of the throat, and apologise for that, as I said, early start. But if there's questions, comments, and I know some of you were commenting as we go through, and thank you for doing that. Some of the things you've mentioned that I haven't read out is, again, the importance to accept what's happening and see what you've neglected to say. I mentioned that before. Think about your parents in the Holocaust and how resilient they were. And Leonie, that's an example of robust, just tough. You just got to get through at whatever cost it was. And now I'm saying is the type of pressure you're experiencing is different. So how do we evolve beyond just toughening up and just getting through and being best version of yourself? Wonderful. So if there's any questions you wanted to pop in, by all means to pop them into the chat box now. Happy to answer those and go forward from there. Wonderful. You also are welcome to raise your hand as well, and you might be unmuted too. So I'm going to pass back to our hosts to facilitate that.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm just looking to see if there... I had a question, if I may, just to jump in. You said, about flowing with change and adapting. But how do you do that if you feel helpless in a situation, as in now, when you put in a situation where you have no power, you feel like you're powerless, and you may not even agree with the situation you're placed in. And I personally am trying very hard to just go with the flow, but there are days when you think, well,
yeah,
how is this achievable? So that may be something that others would like to know as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think part of the answer to your question was actually in your question, that there's a number of things now that you can't control. You can't control when you go out, how often you go, all the things that you used to be able to take control of. And the real key to flowing is looking at your points of influence. Where do you have influence over? Where can you create change? Because what happens is when we deal with a restriction, when we deal with a strain or a tension, if we focus on what I can't do, if we focus on how difficult it is, my energy is going towards an area that I have no control over. And it's kind of like I see a wall and I put energy into pushing against that wall. All that's going to happen is I'm going to get tired. My arm is going to get sore. And we need to actually work out, if I can't change that, what aspect am I in control of? What can I do? Because the more I ask myself questions of, why does this have to happen to me? Why, how long is this going to go on for? How long can we take this for? Those questions put me into a mindset of being fractured and fragile, because it puts me into a victim mentality, because it tells me to answer those questions, it means I'm no longer in control of my world. I need to ask myself questions that elevates me to a higher level. Things like, all right, so sure, I can't control that, but what can I do? What's within my power that I can influence? What are little steps that I can take that help me to do whatever it is I want to achieve? What that does, it focuses on you making progress and you having a better sense of control in what you're doing. And that those questions, it's the questions we ask ourselves that often determines what stage or what level of resilience we settle into. If I'm asking myself, how do I cope through this? What do I do to get through? I'm asking robust kind of questions. If I'm asking, well, what do I need to change and adapt, and how do I need to give of myself? I'm asking malleable questions. If I'm asking, so what do I need to do to be best version? I'm asking pressure-proof questions. So change the question you ask yourself.
Excellent. Is there anyone, I'm just looking to see by hand raising, any other questions?
So the question about URL, yes, bouncebackfast.com. A few questions about .com.au will also work, but bouncebackfast.com. And just on the front page, you can just download that white paper.
I want to say I love Mandy Wilson made a comment earlier on. She said, without medication fractured, with medication robust. I love that. Ronette?
Yeah, I just, I'm having trouble with somebody I care deeply about who is stuck in the negative, stuck in the, number of deaths and number of this and number of that, and can't seem to shift that person's thinking, and feeling very frustrated by that. And I was wondering if you could give me some tips to help me to help that person.
So one of the things, and this is often a question I get from leaders of teams, how do I motivate people? How do I lift their energy? And the short answer of that is that you can't. You're not responsible for their energy. They are responsible for that. However, if you get into that conversation with them, and sometimes to do that, you've got to drop down into that fractured or fragmented kind of zone and get involved. And yes, it's difficult because otherwise there's no conversation. But if you stay there, then that drains your energy. You get sucked into that vortex of negativity and it's very hard to get out. Whereas if I know I'm just going to dip in for a moment, but I then want to dip back out into more of the higher levels, into more of the malleable and the pressure proof, what I want to do is I want to start asking them questions that helps them to see a different perspective. I can't fix people. You can't change their mentality. You can't make them see things. They have to see that. And sometimes by asking them to ask them questions, so if you could solve this, if we could get past this, what would you want to do? What's the first thing you want to do? And to lift their energy by helping them to see possibility rather than doomsday. Because that's what's happening. They're seeing a situation, and in reality, it's a horrible situation. I mean, let's call it what it is. This COVID stuff, it's crap. It's terrible. However, if we want to just focus on how terrible it is, we're going to get stuck in feeling frustrated. We're going to get stuck in feeling overloaded, and therefore we're not going to be able to have solutions to move past it. So we accept the reality, but to solve it, I've got to lift beyond that. And that is by asking myself questions that allow me to see possibilities.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I would just like, Michael, how are you going with time?
I've got 2.5 minutes before I got to jump off.
All right, so I see Adrian Gunsberg. Can you unmute yourself, Adrian? Oh, can you unmute? There we go.
Hi, I'm Linda, actually, on Adrian's email. First of all, thank you. What you have said is amazing. Could I just suggest that perhaps you could convince some of our pollies and health officials to keep just giving us the doom and gloom, that perhaps they could add in a few inspiring and positive messages for people?
It would be lovely. In fact, one of the programs that I'm running at the moment through this medium here, through Zoom, is with Victorian school principals. And we've talked about the importance of rituals and routines, how to help them and their team to stay focused. And amongst all of that is the importance of not getting too submerged in all the negativity. And one principal responded and said, Michael, it's part of my job is to have my finger on the pulse and know what's going on. I can't kind of live like a Pollyanna in the sky. Everything is happy and wonderful. I've got to know what's going on. I've got to be in touch. And I said, I totally agree. Make sure you don't sit there. Make sure you dip in, but then you dip out. And you then go, okay, here's the reality, but where am I going to take this? How do I want to inspire my team? How do I want to see possibilities? Because if you sit and focus, then all that will happen is that the negativity consumes you. So it's our job, honestly, to do what we can, not to allow ourselves to overconsume. I kind of see the news like now is kind of like cake. You know, a little bit, it's good. Too much, I just get fat. You know, and we've got to make sure that we don't overconsume cake.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Michael. Before I hand over to Bella to do the vote of thanks, I just want to let everybody know that all these events are recorded and they're downloaded usually the same afternoon. What we will do from now on is send the link with our next invitation. But if you want to go back and see any of the meetings, including today's, you'll be able to find them on YouTube, and I'll send you the link today so that you can go back and look at these. You know, there were quite a few people asking if they are able to see these. You know, it's quite a lot to take in and to remember. And I was writing again, but you can go back and they are all recorded. And as I said, today we will send you the link with our invite for next week. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our chair, Bella, to do the vote of thanks. Where is Bella? Sorry, I'm not getting my screen back onto. Bella, are you there? There's Bella.
Unmute. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right?
Can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
I hear you loud and clear.
What am I doing?
We can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Well, Michael, that was just amazing. As a former Victorian school principal, I would have loved to have had your words of wisdom then as far as staff and adults go, because our whole focus has been about resilience with children, making children resilient. And what does that mean? But when you turn it around and we have to take a close look, change the lens towards ourselves, it's a very interesting concept. I've taken up everything you've said about coping, enduring, being able to move on, and it applies to every one of us. And as you said very, very aptly, none of us are in a stable, ongoing condition all our life. Our mood changes, our ability to cope changes, with what we hear, but it is our ability to pull ourselves out of that. And I thank you so much for sharing your wonderful understanding of resilience being the key to how we cope, not the answer per se. And I think at JNF, the things you talked about with resilience, a sense of connectedness, a sense of being and giving and thriving is all very true, because at JNForever, I know that Jackie and the team are working tirelessly to keep everybody engaged, connected, and being a family. But Michael, thank you so, so much. As soon as I finish this, I'm going to jump on and download that paper so that I can take time and absorb all your pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on today. I'm glad that the timing worked out well. And again, apologies for the clearing of the voice, but finally got there in the end. So that's good. I do apologize. I do need to hop off. I've got another session of these that I'm presenting in about 4 minutes time. So it's been a pleasure with you guys, and happy to do it again at some stage.
Thank you very, very much. We will see you all next week with another fantastic speaker. And thanks once again, Michael. Thank you very, very, very much. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe and warm.